dive into a little bit of XRP news. Of course, the SEC starts coming at XRP again. We'll break it all down for you guys. Don't miss it. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. I want to thank our sponsor today, and that is Coinbase. Take a look at getting into your own exchange for the very first time in crypto. Jump over to Coinbase.com. This is where you guys can get started. The future of money is here. A very trusted place for both people and businesses to get started on your crypto journey. So just use our link. You'll get $200 in crypto to get started and get going. Let's go on to a couple of points I want to hit on. All right, so I want to start right here on this post from Brad Garlinghouse. And basically what he's saying is XRP, still the law of the land is that it is not a security, and that is going to be the case for the SEC, as they have to prove that it is, or prove that the judge was wrong. Unlikely that that's to happen. So the law of the land today still stands, even though that we do have an appeal in process. Here's Stuart Alderati coming in. His number 3 point was interesting. Coincidence, the SEC's enforcement director announced his resignation about an hour before this. And if you look at the enforcement director, we'll show you the lineup here. We've got some juicy news for you today, so don't miss it. Here's Eleanor Terrett hitting in on that right there, as saying that the resignation happened. We believe this was actually a firing. Everybody was reporting this as a resignation, but it's one of those scenarios, I think, and I'll explain that in a second, of when you fire someone or ask them to resign, you give them a lower position job. It's usually a placeholder job. But here was the announcement. Though the director was the one that was reported on, there was actually 3 people from the enforcement division that were let go or forced to resign, whatever you want to say. 3 different top-level lieutenants here. If you look at the list, here they are: the director of the Division of Enforcement, then the deputy director, and then also the chief counsel, all leaving at the same time. So very interesting timing here, for sure, with the fact that the appeal is taking place, but also just the positioning of the SEC. We've got a lot of clips here that I want to break into. One is a clip on kind of just a reminder of who Gurbir Grewal is. Take a look.
Who has better pizza, New York or New Jersey? The answer is obvious. New Jersey has the best pizza, hands down, period.
So you do extra jurisdictional requests then?
Voluntary requests are just that. They're voluntary. They're an important part.
Again, sir, I'm not asking about the request now. I'm asking about the people you direct those to. There are some that would be within the SEC's jurisdiction. There are some that are not. My question is, and I think you've confirmed it, that you do industry sweeps to extra jurisdictional market participants, people you do not have enforcement authority over.
Market participants.
Are they within your jurisdiction and outside of your jurisdiction?
We're not limited by our jurisdiction. We follow the evidence wherever it leads and to whomever it leads.
I would say, sir,
go after them.
So you do extra jurisdictional work. Some would argue that that's not appropriate. The SEC is hell-bent on expanding the size of its crypto enforcement division and using enforcement to unconstitutionally expand its jurisdiction. Under Chair Gensler, the SEC has become a power-hungry regulator, baiting companies to, quote, come in and talk to the commission, then hitting them with enforcement actions and discouraging good faith cooperation. Understand, sir, there is a new day coming. Thank you. I yield back.
So the time has come. Maybe there is a change getting ready to start to occur. If you look at the commission meeting, this gets a little interesting. You kind of see Gensler and his posture there. If you're a body language reader, not too much. There's Mark Ueda. Of course, all is coming after what happened last week in the congressional hearing, which was dynamic. If you didn't get a chance to watch that video, go back and check that video out, because it really breaks down what is happening within the SEC and some of the things that they do believe. This was a clip that came from inside the SEC staff meeting. I want you to listen to this very closely.
And so I'm really looking forward to hearing what all of you have to say. You've put on thoughtful panels, made recommendations, topics ranging from complex products, ETFs, to crypto assets.
I'm glad that Commissioner Jackson is there too. If he's in the room there, I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks up in New York, Rob.
Next, we have Rob Jackson. So Rob is a professor at NYU School of Law. He is also a former SEC commissioner, and most importantly here, my former professor.
So I'm curious on the panelists, if there's a compromise solution, if they do the blockchain tracing, so that it's not an either or, you can have liquidity and an incentive for tracing.
Deal. My own view, that's really interesting and creative. I would I'd want to encourage people in that direction. Anything that's not nothing, I'd be thrilled.
Not just bomb throwers, but serious people are thinking about whether the SEC has any authority to do what they've been doing. I don't think that the current structure is working very well. I don't like the idea that, from a big picture, the SEC has somebody in CorpFin determining whether something is an important social good, and you're paying for it. I think that's a very ugly argument to make in the Fifth Circuit. When you just talk of the last 25 years, it depends who's in office, regulatory ping pong. But if the courts come in and give you a result you're not going to like, then there's no more regulatory ping pong, right? Now we're going to have a whole new structure, right? So I think the SEC has to be very careful about where they're going with this at the moment. And I think there's a lot of risk they're bearing. And I'm a little concerned about it.
I want to just throw out a policy idea, but one thing the SEC could do would be to encourage the kind of discussions that Bob just mentioned.
All right, so he is one of the mentors of Gary Gensler, also kind of aligning with Stebbins there, which is simply saying we've kind of overreached here and we're getting outside of our congressional alliance. And we're starting to see the courts give us directives that we'd have no really response to. So it's a pretty damning statement, I think, in general, of where the SEC sets right now against XRP, but really against crypto in general. Also, another thing that happened just today, October 3rd, the live trials of digital asset transactions now starting on SWIFT. Now, this is going to be happening in 2025. Again, Chainlink partnered with this, but the point around this is timing and also the solution itself. If you go further into it, you kind of understand a little bit more about what SWIFT is doing. And that is a centralized view of transaction data. And remember that SWIFT is essentially the tool that moves large amounts of money around the world. That's exactly what XRP and Ripple is destined to do. Another point, with SWIFT is you look at the alignment of centralized digital currency. That's exactly what we're talking about here as CBDC. This is where SWIFT is heading. And one of the things you have to watch for is the alignment of how the technology is going forward. So I've got a clip here showing their CEO talking a little bit more about Garlinghouse. Take a look.
Okay, so SWIFT is studying blockchain at this time. Now, Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple, he characterized GPI
as largest man in the U.S., sixth richest man in the U.S.
I think for a moment there he was, wasn't he? XRP, yeah.
For a brief moment.
He described GPI as a horse and buggy, and Ripple is an automobile. I mean, what do you make of that? I mean, he's basically saying that you're still outdated, even though you've done this crash program.
Yeah, let's see. We'll see. We could also. There's many analogies you could use. My favorite analogy right now is I drive an electric car,
right.
A Tesla, I have to say, and that's an interesting one. You could say Tesla is the future, and the old cars are the past. I have to say, it's a beautiful experience to have an electric car. I love the concept, but it's still an American car. And I can say if I could get a German car with German engineering and the electrical thing, that would be my choice. So the other thing he said is this is a classic David Goliath thing.
He did?
Well, if I'm now facing somebody who through this crypto thing is sitting on 100 billion in war chest and has unlimited funding, who's the Goliath out here? But anyway.
All right, so his statements are a little bit dated. I think the point he's making about cars is probably a little bit in his face right now. Tesla Model Y, the top-selling electric vehicle in Europe, over, guess what? If you look further on down there, VW. ID3 and ID4, not necessarily that great. All the German vehicles right below it. You kind of see it. All the European cars not keeping pace with the times in terms of advancement. I think that alignment of a good analogy is perfect for him. The only problem is he's on the other side of it. And that is his technology is not the one that's going forward. So much so, their CEO quits. And this, of course, happened over a couple of situations. And one, of course, is the intense change of technology landscape. So simply put, SWIFT understands there's a big dynamic that's starting to happen around technology advancement, around DeFi, and also just around crypto and how digital assets are going to move. And they're just not in the spot for this to occur as the leader, the global leader around this. Just so everybody remembers, there is a pro-CBDC crypto army, anti-crypto army still out there in force. We do a lot of videos on this. This, of course, I would just go back and watch some of our past videos around this because this is a big deal around why and what was all of this about when it comes to XRP and the SEC and why it's so important. I want to go to one more clip here. This is one where it gets a little bit deeper on Garlinghouse being open sourced, because this is really the value proposition that they bring. Take a look.
The CBDC is a really risky undertaking for a central bank, but now we have someone from the private sector, Brad Garlinghouse, who is the CEO of the financial technology company Ripple.
Yeah, I think they saved me for last so that I could talk about the private sector version of this. I'll also start by kind of explaining the basics of what Ripple is and what Ripple is not. To be clear, we have not focused on the central bank digital currency issuance. Our view is very much there needs to be interoperability globally. And even in a world of CBDCs, you still need interoperability to solve that problem. We think by standardizing on an open source API, we can make that more efficient for everyone. And we've been fortunate, therefore, to get about 200 customers globally now working with us in one way or another.
Thanks very much, Brad. Well, I'd like to hear more about that. It certainly sounds promising.
All right, so his point, very simple. Open source is the route to take, and I think any kind of new advanced technology, you're going to see open source decentralization and interoperability are the key terms that all of this is going to be taking place under. And that is exactly what's happening, that is not necessarily in the same alignment with what SWIFT is doing. This was a tweet by them. Starting next year, they were going to do their announcement. And of course, you can kind of see that there are some interesting points going head to head right here. That, of course, is Chainlink CEO right there. So let's go to another clip real quick. I want to get into this one because this will go into where Sergey Nazarov is in his strategy going into play with SWIFT. Take a look.
In addition to the blockchain, you need a tokenization platform like what Securitize creates. So that's really great work. Then you need Oracle networks, and then you have DeFi protocols that generate yield on it. You have all these kind of distribution channels. But once you have a good cross-chain system that efficiently and seamlessly and reliably connects all the value on all the chains into one, what we call Internet of Contracts, then launching that financial product on any one chain doesn't limit you to the user base in that chain.
All right, so what he's saying here, I don't want to get too deep into this, but if you think about the use of CBDCs, oracles, and the connectivity of what Chainlink is doing with SWIFT, you have to kind of compare what XRP is doing, and they just dropped this information. This was the Axelar news around interoperability, but not utilizing CBDC. So going back to the open source model, we did a video on this just this week, one day ago, called the XRP October Surprise. And this was a very big point around where Axelar is going. Could they be the challenger for Chainlink and SWIFT? Could it be Axelar and XRP? So a lot happening out there right now for sure. A couple other things I want to hit on. Of course, this is the news right here that happened today. SUI, XRP Ledger, Eigenlayer, etc. Are all integrating with Axelar's new Mobius development stack. And of course, one of the things that play into this is the fact that this is self-service, interoperable across various blockchains. That's the idea behind where all this might be going. Another point I want to get to, just to show you the development stack right here for Axelar. A lot of things are upcoming here. Let me kind of zoom in right there. Flow, Hedera, Solana, Stacks, all these are chains where you're going to have these kinds of integrations and interoperability layers. So this is a very advanced system, back to the concept of advanced technology in the banking and financial instruments in the future. This is where it might be playing right into Ripple's hands. So a lot of stuff happening right now. Here's Hester Peirce. I want to go into this one because this is a good one. Take a look.
You know, you mentioned the 75 Act amendments. That was something that Chair Gensler mentioned as well in his opening comments. And I think if I could have whispered in the ear of that Congress in 1975, I would have urged them to remember that markets are really good at figuring out ways to link with one another. And I think especially now that we have technology that makes that so much easier, I think there's a lot that markets can do without having a government regulator facilitate that. And we have to set rules in accord with what Congress tells us to do. But I do think that we don't need to play an active role in managing these markets, as active a role as we have played, I should say. In any event, we'll stop thinking about hypothetical worlds and now think about the world that we're actually putting into place.
So very contentious times right now at the SEC. You can kind of see there is a little bit of a power struggle occurring around what they believe is their true charter and what they don't believe is the true charter coming out of Congress. And I definitely see that Hester Peirce and, of course, Mark Ueda, the ones that we've talked about a lot, are in alignment with what they should be doing in terms of letting markets decide how this goes forward. Let's take a look at another appeal right here. You guys will remember this one, and that was Kalshi, that of course did the same kind of scenario, that a government appeal came in from the CFTC, and they absolutely got struck down, which is why now predictive markets are fully legal here in the United States. That was a big move, and I think that's probably what's going to be happening here with the SEC's new appeal going forward. I want to go over to this next clip, and this one is good because it's Rostin Benham. This is the director of the CFTC, and he talks about this very issue. Take a look.
I think with the court challenge, there was a court decision by district court a few weeks ago. We appealed. This is the position of the commission. We're not going to back off of it. And Congress did give the CFTC authority to make decisions about public interest.
And of course, you probably saw our video on this. We did a full breakdown. They did not give the CFTC, he was not accurate there, and the judge even outlined it as that was not necessarily the case, which is why we saw that appeal get struck down against Kalshi. And those are the kind of things that are happening right now on this bureaucratic overreach that continues to move forward. So really the question remains, why is the SEC so important? Let me play this next clip.
Sandra, you kind of provide this wonderful international perspective, and I feel as though the SEC has not just become the top cop of crypto in the U.S., they've become the de facto authority around the world.
Yeah, but I just want to push back on the premise of your question.
Yeah.
I don't think the SEC has established itself as the leading regulatory voice on crypto around the world. I meet with regulators in Singapore, in the UK, in the EU, in Brazil, in Dubai. The SEC is not mentioned. Think about it. They're a self-appointed cop on the beat. No law has appointed them the cop on the beat. In our case, they've been called out by a judge for not faithfully applying the law. In your case, they've been called out by a judge for acting arbitrarily and capriciously. In the debt box case in Utah, they've been sanctioned by a court for outright visiting a fraud upon the court. The question is not why are they doing what they're doing, is why do they still have their jobs? And in fact, I think that this administration has done tremendous harm to the credibility of the organization as it looked when Dan served as a commissioner. That's my mom is here.
Listen, I don't think that this is a situation where the rest of the world even really pays attention, and we're seeing more and more of this globally. But if you look at where the moves are happening globally, well, Ripple and Mercado, of course, now partnering to launch cross-border payments in Brazil. So this will be another big move. We'll probably see even more announcements, I anticipate, with the Swell event coming up. Remember, Ripple getting ready to come into Miami and most likely drop quite a few insights, I think, on the next move for what Ripple is doing. So listen, a lot happening right now. I think this is a good thing because it's getting all this out in the open, which means we can address it, have these conversations, whether it's with regulators, authorities, lawmakers, and really innovators, because I think that's the real question here is how quickly the United States is going to try to get up to speed with these kind of antics continuing to play into the play. So I don't know. It's a big one for sure. If you're not in the Diamond Circle, get in right now. It's a great place to get additional content. Follow me out there on X, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.